Hey, good morning, good evening, whatever is there in your country right now. And today, we'll be learning about use context hook. If you don't already know, this is going to be a very interesting tutorial. So let's continue. So how use context hook is used? First of all, let's understand the need of use context hook, and then I think it would be better to go and actually use it, right? So why do we need a use context hook? So generally in a program, let's say, if I just say whiteboard, right? I'll just open a whiteboard application just to uh, get it more clear. Why do we need to use context hook? And then we'll actually be using a use context hook. So imagine this, right? Imagine this case. So you have one parent element, right? So this is, let's consider this as the parent element, right? This is your parent, right? And what you do is you have a lot of children to this, right? So let's say this is children number one, this is two, this is three. Usually in a React application you have a lot of children, right? So let's say if this is your page, right, this is your page, you might have a navigation bar on the top, right, like this. You might have a sidebar on this side, you might have a main content in this. So you basically have like this parent thing, and you have a lot of children inside them, right? Now a lot of times you actually need to pass data from this parent to the child, right? So what do? Like, what is the most normal approach which you do? You pass it through props, right? So you pass it through props. You say, okay, you can pass it through props, right? And but the problem is this is not a very good way. This is like not a very good way. The reason is, let's say if this also has some children and that also has some children, you'll actually have to pass it from here to here, then here to here, then here to here, and that's not a very good way, right? Just keep on passing the props. And the problem is, if you remove one element from the top, the whole tree is broken, right? So we don't want that to happen. We want it to be very smooth. We want it to be less dependent, less faulty basically. So one of the ways to do it is passing it through context, right? So passing it through context. I don't know why I'm writing this, but yeah, whatever. So in context, what you do is you create an object and you call it CTX or context. I'm for context, I'm using this shorthand CTX. And wherever you want to like access the parent's property which you have defined, you just use this CTX in order to access it. Simple stuff. So now let's actually go and code this stuff and let's see how does it work. So I have a simple React application setup over here. So first of all, what I'll do is I'll create some component. So let's call it this top bar component. So right. I'll return some JSX out of this, and let's call it no name for now, right? And let's say you are basically you are using this as a component over here. So this is the child component and this one is the parent component, right? So invisible, yeah. This is the child component and this is the parent component, right? Usually, like let's talk about the first case. How will you transfer data to this? So you will do like you will pass it through props. So what you will do is you will pass it like your data, right? And you will give your data over here and you'll access it through props, maybe like data, right? And then you pass it like, okay, this is my data, right? And then you can access it, right? That's one way, right? But but let's say this also have some children. Like again you have to pass. That's called prop drilling, which you want to avoid, right? So what you do is you create a context. Now how do you create a context? There's a simple hook called create context. So you say, okay, this is my context. You can name it absolutely anything which you wish, and you can say create context, right? And after that, what you do is you pass a default value to this, right? In our case, let's say if we want to pass two values through this context, like, okay, set one the value, and the second is as a function which is like set. It's like same as use state, right? Let's say if you want to do that. So what will you do is, let's set a type to this. The first, I want an array to be there as a value. First I want a number. Second, I want null. Second, I want a function, right, which takes again a number inside it, which will be a number, right? And it will be a void function. or it would be null, right? So by default there will be no value for this function, right? So we'll pass a default value. So we'll say, okay, for now 0 is the default value and there's no setter function for now because we don't know the setter function, right? That's a type. If you're not using TypeScript, that's not at all a use for you. You can completely avoid that. Right, so this is our context. Now what you have to do is the parent component, like below which you want to access the value of this context. What you can do is you can just wrap this all around inside ctx.provider, right? Now why am I okay, oh okay, whatever. So let's actually get rid of this second time, and what you can do is you can pass it like this. Now it's throwing an error. It's saying, okay, but give me the value which you want to pass, right? So what you can do is we can just create a state, right? Let's call it number or name or whatever you want, right? So let's call it number, right? And set number, something like that, right? And use a use state, right? So by default, let's keep it 0. And what you can do is you can pass this whole state. So you can say state or num state, right? This has two things. Remember, this is an array. One element is the number, second element is the setter of that number, right? So you know we can just take this whole thing and pass it as a value to this context, right? So you can see we have passed this whole thing as a value to this context and it's completely happy. Now let's say if I want to access the value of this particular context in this particular top bar component, how will I do that? It's pretty simple. You know, we'll just say, okay, the value, you know, whatever the value is, you know, again we can do like num and set num, same as what was there, and you can say use context, right, and pass the name of the context, and you can pass it 30 level below, it doesn't matter, you will be able to access the data, right? So this is the context and I pass it over here. Now I will actually be able to access that data, right, num over here, right? And we can even modify that data from the children. So let's say if I just have a button for some reason over here, and if I say increase 1, right, and I just say on click, right, on click set num plus 1, right? If I do this, I can literally change the data from the children, and this is not like if I just go over here, this is not like from here I can change it from another thing, it's completely free. I'm like, for example, if I have another component, let's say test, right? I don't know, okay, and let's say if I just copy this to this place, right? First of all, let's try to actually access the data, right? Access the data. So this is our test component and I want to access that data. How will I do that? A simple, again, same process, const nums set nums and use context, right? I pass that context and here I have the access to the data. So let's let it be like this, right? And I just do nums. I don't know if I have done nums, it should be num, but I can name it whatever I want, right? So if I just increase it over here, you can see it is actually being increased in both places, and you can set this as well with like both of the places, which is cool, I think. So this is how actually the use context hook works. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll be covering every hook in this series. So thank you, have a great day.